The time is now 5 p.m. I call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. And now we will have the invocation being given by Mr. Tim Bolton.
Heavenly Father, oh my goodness. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for the time that you give us to work together. Thank you for, excuse me, thank you for this board. We invite you here with us tonight to dwell among us, to live in our hearts, to live in our minds, and to influence our thoughts and feelings here tonight, and that we might lead in a way that you would lead us to go. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you. And now, Mrs. Lowry, will you lead us in the pledges? Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Okay, now we will open the meeting to the public hearing on the TAPR report, presentation given by Ms. Tammy Clark.
There we go. Thank you. All right, so I'm here for the report on Texas Academic Performance Report. This is a public hearing. We get this report from the state of Texas. It's last year's results. We get it in December, and so I'm bringing it to you so that you can see the results from our testing from last school year. What we're going to go over tonight is the TAPR report and the highlights, the campus performance progress, district accreditation status, district special education compliance status, safe schools information that is mandated by law that we go over, and the performance of previous year's graduates, which is also a mandate to go over during this public hearing. So some of the highlights. If you look at our numbers district-wide compared to Region 11 and the state of Texas, we outperform the averages in every area but one. This is significant just because all of those kids took the same test, and so that's a highlight. Our attendance improved. We've been working on our attendance. Emmett is happy to know that from 2023 to 2024, we increased by 2%. Our campuses and our campus principals and leadership have been working very hard to put a focus on attendance, and so that has improved. Our graduation rate has stayed consistent. It's consistently higher than the state and the region, and it's been pretty consistent. Our CCMR graduates increased by 15.2%. That's a huge deal. This is lag data, so it's not last year's data. It's actually the year prior to that when you do CCMR data. So when I say lag data, it means not 2024. It means 2023. But we're getting very, very close to the state and regional averages. We've been working on this. Todd Gibson has put a lot of work and focus area on that. And then our graduates earning IBCs, which also helps us with our CCMR, has increased by 15.2% over last year's 2 years ago lag data, surpassing the state and region averages. So we are earning more IBCs out of our CTE area than the state and the region schools for the first time.
Ms. Clark, could you please explain what CCMR is and IBC?
Yes. So CCMR is Career College Military Readiness. And so that's part of our score for accountability. So that's why it's in our TAPR. But it also is a focus for our school. So you can be career college military ready with some different wickets. Some of them are academic in math and English. And some of them are through your IBCs, which is your certification areas, your industry-based certifications that we get through our CTE programs. Yeah, thank you for asking. So what I really want to highlight is when we intentionally make something an area of focus, we show good gains. And our focus areas the past few years have been instruction, and that is never going to change, but also attendance and safety and culture. So the 30,000-foot overview of our data gives us our elementary results. I put the state in white, the region in gray, and ours in purple. You can see that our elementary students in all of the tested areas for STAR outperform state and region. We did middle school as well, and so you can see that this is the one area where we have a lag. That 8th grade math is significantly lower. The 7th grade math is significantly higher, and some of that is due to some choices, and we are looking at this a little bit, and it's something that we can make a decision on, and we think we're going to push our 7th grade accelerated math students to take the 8th grade math test, because right now our accelerated 8th graders take the algebra test, and so that's where you have that dip. Does that make sense? Because if all of your accelerated students are taking the next test, then you are going to have a dip in scores somewhere, and ours is in 8th grade. And then the results for high school, and we exceed or meet for U.S. history the state and regional averages for those tests as well. So when we compare our students against those in the state and the region, we are, for the most part, outperforming our peers. Some of the other data that goes into the TAPR is it's not just about the STAR testing data. Some of it is graduation rate. So our graduation rate at 94.7, and I put with a 2% holdover, so like that tells you that 2% of our students are still continuing. And so for a 6-year graduation rate or a 5-year graduation rate, if they graduate late, we also will get credit for those grads. But this is the 4-year graduation rate that I put on there. So when you compare it with the state, who has 3.1% continuing, even if all 3.1% of those graduated and none of our 2% graduated, we would still beat the state average in graduation rate. So that's why I put that way. For AP and dual credit course completion, we are below, slightly below the state average, but we are working on boosting our numbers there. And we are talking about how we can boost those numbers. Our CCMR grads, up at 15.2% because we've been focusing on it. It's still not there for to get to the state average, but I have a feeling that this time next year, I'll be standing up here saying that our CCMR grads are higher than the state average. CTE-based certifications, that was also up, and we inched past the state average for what percentage of our students get an industry-based certification. We don't test as many ACT and SAT students. We test them in TSI, and some of them, that's all that they need. And so we don't test students that don't need to take the ACT and SAT. And so our average score is a little bit higher, but if they are not wanting to go to a 4-year college, even if they want to go to a 2-year college, that'll take a TSI, or if they go to Tarleton, because we have the agreement with Tarleton, they don't need it. And so they don't take it, right? Our demographics, a lot of people will look at the TAPR report and look at the demographics. Those are for us to know if our population is shifting. One thing that I do want to note is our population for special education continues to rise. So last year we had 15.8, and this year we're at 17% already. So we educate our special education students very, very well, and people know it, and we have a lot of special education students coming here. Our emerging bilinguals are also a population that's increasing. Economically disadvantaged, we are right there, the 52 to 54% economically disadvantaged over and over again. And so those are the ones that I'd really like to highlight, unless you have more questions. We do have, I can go ahead and talk about this right here. We have, when it says 678 professional staff, that is inclusive of the 547 teachers. So out of all of our professional staff, 547 out of 628 are teaching staff. We have a lot of teachers with a lot of experience, which is great and wonderful, and we just have to retain them and not let them retire. So there you go. Special program information. We have less bilingual in ESL, obviously, than the state, but that population continues to rise for us. Gifted and talented, we stay at about that percentage. And special education, like I spoke before, we continue to rise, and we're definitely above the state average. But the state is also, those numbers are also continuing to go up. Some of it because of some of the qualifying factors. A lot of dyslexia is now falling under special education. So that has some to do with how many special education students we have. So I went campus by campus and put opportunities for growth and GLOW, and you'll find that, math comes up on the opportunity side quite a bit for each of the different campuses, which explains why Ms. Brown was here last month or the month prior talking about OER and math. And a focus in that, and using some of our grants, state grants, to do professional development for the OER for math and really implement that well for those math scores. Math across the state and nation has declined, but that is our biggest area of opportunity in this moment. So that will be a big focus moving forward. Mandatory reporting information. So part of it is the accreditation status, and that's like, do you have an A, do you have a B? Well, we don't have a grade because TEA is in litigation for that. So no A through F grades were given because of that last year or this year yet. Someday they may, but so there's that. But we did get a determination status for special education, and we meet requirements, which is good. Some other things that I'm used to saying and touting about is our campus distinctions. Campus distinctions are given when a school performs in an area above, in the top quartile of their like school groups. So Bacchus has a group of 40 schools that are economically disadvantaged like them, have a ethnic breakdown like they do, and they're compared to those schools. And so if they're in the top quarter of the performance for English, for example, then they would get an English distinction. And we usually are very excited to talk about all the distinctions that we're getting, and TEA has not released distinctions for campuses due to litigation. So that is a bummer, because that's really kind of a fun part of this very awesome presentation that Wes loves so much. And was talking about earlier.
Real quick before you move on.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that litigation? Because there's 2 lawsuits that I understand that are happening. The first one was filed because TEA changed the accountability standards or measurements for STAR after the fact, after the STAR had already been taken. I believe they wanted to go back 3 years. So some of those students had already even graduated school, and they were wanting to change the metrics on that. And then the second one has to do with the AI grading. Is that correct?
Some of it is AI grading, and some of it is the A through F refresh. I don't know if you remember,
refresh,
2.5 years ago, I came and said, oh, the state of Texas is under a continuous improvement model. So every 5 years, they are going to move the goalposts, if you will, change the way that they do the calculation for A through F, and they're just trying to make it better. And they're trying to make it better for us, and they're trying to goal our kids higher and trying to get continuous improvement for students. So with that, there's an emphasis on growth. And so some schools that have been used to having A's based on proficiency for eons were having a hard time showing growth. And so comparatively, they weren't really loving their score, because for the first time ever, it wasn't necessarily about where they were performing, but also were each of their children getting a year's worth of academic growth, no matter where they started. And so that's part of the litigation, and it has to do a lot with how that refresh is calculating out. We still look at how the calculation goes, and we still try to hit the areas that they're trying to focus on, because it's not just all students. Then you also have targets for each of the different demographics, and so that you're really focusing on every kid. And so that's what we try to do. But any other questions about that piece?
We'll take that. Excuse me, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you today, by the way. I spent a lot of time with Ms. Clark today, so thank you for that bit of education, certainly. The state, because of the litigation, won't publish A through F.
Correct.
Can we do that?
So there have been some people who have, and it was a big no-no, and there's been some people who won't, and their communities want it. And the truth is that anything that you would be putting out to the public would be tentative or projected or, your best guess, because with the litigation, they might make some changes about exactly where those goalposts are. And then that could shift people dramatically one way or another. Nobody minds shifting up, but if you shifted down, everybody would mind that. And so it's probably just best to say, this is where our present levels are. This is where our present levels are compared to last year. This is where our present levels are compared to Region 11 and the state. And then make good, sound decisions on improvement on that, because that's what really matters. And if people have questions about, well, where are we on all of that kind of stuff, and there is a lot of data, and we talked about it today, then they can just call me and we can have a conversation. Or their campus principal can walk them through it if they want to do it on the campus level.
Yeah, I get that. So you can use it as a tool to make decisions internally, but I like your comment about if you publish that and then they change the rules and you have to go back and amend or publish it again. Yeah.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some more safe schools reporting. So some of the things that I have to tell you is that we had 2 discipline referrals that had a code that that I need to tell you about here. And so felony controlled substances happening on campuses, that has to be mandated reported. And so most of our discipline things are general code of conduct violations. So you can see with our numbers of referrals, how many of them are general code of conduct. And so, but we mandatorily have to report what the safe schools do. What are some of our preventions for that? So I know that bullying has been a community discussion, and our answer to that is CKH, and we have rolled it out now on elementary and secondary campuses, just building relationships where people, out of respect and integrity for others, and so that, continuing to do that with character lessons, can do you lessons at the high school and junior highs, and then giving kids leadership opportunities so that they feel better about themselves, because usually that's the root of the problem with the bully, is that they're not given some of those opportunities to lead, and don't necessarily see leadership in others. And so if we can just continue that process. We've seen some good results there, and so have a lot of other school districts. So that's one of the ways. There's lots of things there, but that we finally have done all of our campuses for CKH, and so that's going really, really well. Is there anything else on that list that you'd like me to discuss in more detail?
CKH means?
Capturing kids' hearts. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, I'm guilty of all of the acronyms. I'm sorry. Okay. So it's important to say that the only way to get this information is from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And so a lot of the students that you find not trackable or not found are our grads that are going out of state. If they go out of state or if they go into the workforce. So this tracks if they get into a public university, 4-year or 2-year, or an independent college, so private university. And those are the numbers that we are supposed to report. But it doesn't report none of our grads that are at any of our service academies end up on this list. No one that goes to Arkansas to cheer or anything like that ends up on this list. These are just Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and there is not a really good way of tracking the rest of them, where they go yet.
Is this, many of the things that they track for the CCMR and that type of thing?
So this doesn't go into.
Do these count for or against us?
That's a great question. These are neutral. They do not count for nor against us. It's just information that I'm required to report. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't show up on the TAPR anywhere. It shows up on the website for Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So, good question. All right. So there's a TAPR glossary link, and it'll be linked online as well with the district TAPR and each of the campus TAPRs so that you can look at them in depth. And again, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I had one question I saw out in the community regarding our professional staff and our teachers. Could you talk a little bit more about those numbers?
This is where, yes. So Ryan has pulled that up, and I'm going to, thank you. So one of the questions that Ms. Gore asked me earlier was about professional staff compared to teaching staff. So it's important that everyone knows that that 676 number of professional staff includes the 547 teachers. So we have 547 teachers. We have 95 that are professional support. We have 26 roughly that are campus administrators and 10 that are central admin count as administrators, because some of the ones that are housed here are counted in the professional support group. It's really important that people look at the percentages. We have done, I feel like, a pretty great job of supporting our campuses from the admin side, because I know the question was like, why do we have so much admin? If you look at our professional support, for example, that would include our instructional specialists, that would include our special education diags. Those people are included there. So we're running on 8-point-something% of our total, where the state average is at 11% for those kind of people doing those tasks. And we feel it, and so there's that. For campus administration, the state is at a 3.3% number, and we're at a 2.3% number. And for central administration, we're at a 0.9, and the state average is at a 1.2. So in every single area of admin, we are lower than the state average in Granbury, Texas. So thank you for asking that question. I know that sometimes people are like, professional staff, teachers, and they think that those things are separate, but our teachers are counted in our professional staff for this report.
Thank you for answering that in your explanation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll go.
Thanks.
So Tell me, so this was interesting for me to learn earlier this week, or I guess that was last week, that I had the understanding that your staff was preparing the TAPR report and that we were reporting that up to TEA, but now I understand it really comes the other way. Help me with that.
Right. So we take the test, we get the data in the fall to do our campus and district improvement plans. It becomes finalized and we get the TAPR report from the state in its current state. We do not put this together. The state puts this together, gives us access to it, and then we have this hearing to present the information that the state has verified and sent forward and said, this is your information as compared with the rest. And so my presentation is ours, but the TAPR belongs to the state, and they give it to us in December of every year. And so I come in, if we get it early enough in December, sometimes I squeak it in there, but usually in January. I come and do the TAPR report in January for you.
Yeah, so in January, now help me with that. The timeliness of that report is
Right.
ill-advised. I mean,
The timeliness for the community is not awesome.
Yeah.
I agree with that. The time that we get it to make good decisions, and nothing in education happens super fast, right? Because like we're going to be focusing on math, we're looking at grants to start this spring to implement something for next year based on last year's data that we got early enough to apply for grants and get that ball moving, and look at curriculum and see if it was the one that we wanted, bring it before the board, get it approved. The process is slow, but we get to make the decisions. You said, you're looking at the data so that you can make some good decisions. We get that data early enough to make some of those changes while we're working in the summer.
yep, thank you. All right, and now I'm going to take you back. I didn't know we were going to interject in the course of, I was saving them till the end, so sorry.
No, you're fine.
So can you take me back, or one of you guys take me back to those bar graphs that were
Yeah.
white and purple and gray?
Please.
Yeah, so these. So it doesn't really matter which one. I just want, it was interesting to me to learn
Yes.
today that while I was doing this analysis on my own to look at the performance
Yes.
year over year, and I think that was not fair in terms of the way the goalposts move, and I'll let you speak to that, but why is it important then for us to compare ourselves to other schools in the region and in the state versus our own district year over year?
So this is really the comparison with the state and the region just shows you the work that we're doing in our district when kids that are kids all across the state of Texas, our kids are outperforming those in the state and the region on the same test in the same window of testing time. When you start looking at year over year of, third grade results, for example. Well, let me do fourth grade. Fourth grade results, for example. You might have fourth grade results that are amazing in one year, and then they might fall. And you might be like, what is going on in fourth grade? Is it a group that's tough, that has a higher population of special education, or EBs or higher needs students that struggle more? Is it a group that missed some certain things on COVID and we haven't gotten them caught up yet? Those were certainly some of the earlier ones closer to that time frame. I think we're done with that excuse. But it could be also that I had an example earlier for Mr. Bolton about you had our fourth grade, and we have so many fourth grade teachers, and some of them do switch classes. So you might have 2 fourth grade math teachers at a campus, right? Because they're doing this switch class and they're teaching the math in this classroom. Well, we might have a fabulous teacher, and she might be on maternity leave, and that might impact scores, right? There's lots of different variables that you just can't. You can look at the data and you can make good decisions, but sometimes there's a story behind some of the dips, and you just have to see what they are and then respond appropriately, right? So it's really important. The state, in their continual improvement status, does move the bar, and they do change how we do accountability and those types of things. And there's different targets depending on what content you're teaching. The reading targets are different than the math targets, and they're different than the science targets. And so, so you can't just say, like one of the questions that we discussed with Mr. Bolton was, so is an approaches a D, and is it a 60, and you really can't put that number to that like that. It just does not translate in that way, because it just doesn't. But, so it's important to compare, because that's the only way you can really know, like, was it a hard test for everyone across the state or just ours, right? Then it's a problem we really need to address, right? If we continue to see a decline, or we dip below the state in the region, and everybody else in the state and the region is figuring something out better than us, especially when we've had results like this, then we need to start reviewing what we're doing. And that's a good indicator. So those are some of the 30,000-foot view discussions you can have when you're looking at comparative data in the same year with the same test with the same age kids. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? My summary is that we have rock star administrators on each of our campuses really doing a good job pushing instruction and leading our teachers who are working very, very hard. And we need to be very, very proud of what they're doing with our students every single day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
If I can say one more thing about Ms. Clark. You spend the entire year poring over this data. She doesn't spend just a little bit of time in the summer when she first gets it to help make the ideas of what to send out to the campuses. I don't think I have gone into your office once in the last year that you weren't poring over some part of this data, all these numbers from every single campus, from every single class, seeing what else you can do, what else the principals can do, what else the teachers can do to do what's best for these kids. And I cannot say enough of your professionalism and how much we appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Okay, that concludes our public hearing. We will now open up for public comments. We haven't had anyone that registered, but I know Ms. Dixon.
Madam Chairman, I would like to recognize Mr. Cox. He would like to be our commenter tonight.
January each year is School Board Appreciation Month, so Lisa Oliver and I put together a short little video slideshow just to show our appreciation for all you do for the students and staff of this district.
Thank you for that. That was so heartwarming. It's truly a pleasure to serve this district. We all have a heart for kids, and we love this job. And yes. Yes. Thank you. I mean, we all have a heart for kids, and we love what we do. It's an honor to serve this district, so thank you. This will be your last meeting.
Something happens before the 24th.
We are going to miss you. It has been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
Great. We are now going to convene into closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.001, Section 551.074, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. The time is now 5:36. No. The time is now 5:43. We are reconvening back into open session. I would like to add some clarity to the reasons why we're going into executive session under Government Code 551.074, staff recommendations, and also to approve the contract for our new superintendent, Dr. Courtney Morosky. The time is now 5:44. We are convening back into executive session. Okay. The time is now 6:12 PM. We are reconvening back into open session following the executive session. And we have two items to move on. First one is staff recommendations discussed in closed session. Do I have a motion for staff recommendations?
Madam President, I move that we approve the staff recommendations as discussed in closed session.
I have a motion by Mike Moore. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Barbara Townsend. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, we can have a vote. First by Mike Moore, second by Barbara Townsend. All those in favor, raise your hand. Let the record show that is 6-4, 1 absent, being Mr. Billy Wimberly. Second item discussed in closed session was the approval of the superintendent contract for Dr. Courtney Morosky and to bring her on board officially with Granbury ISD. Do I have a motion?
I would love to make the motion, Madam President, that we hire officially Dr. Morosky.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Tim Bolton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. I'm giving this one to Nancy.
Okay, this is me.
I have a second from Miss Nancy Alana. Any discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment that I have spoken with someone who works with someone who worked with Dr. Morowski when she was in Mansfield, and they absolutely loved her. So we're just so excited to have you coming on board.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ditto that. We have a former teacher that is now in Fayetteville and a friend of my wife's, and said how lucky we are to have you. So, small world.
Awesome. Thank you. Do I have any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand. Let the record show that is 6 in favor, 1 absent, being Mr. Billy Wimberly. Yes, we all voted for. Congratulations. Come join us up here. Yes. You get to come up here. You come take your official spot. Thank you. It's officially official now. We're so excited to have you on. We've heard nothing but great things. We're so excited to get this new chapter started with you. Thank you for joining our pirate ship.
I am ready and can't wait to be here. Day learning from
Great.
your full time.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we don't have any other further items, but before we close, I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Dixon and everything she's done for our district over the last several months and seeing us through this process. You have been a true blessing to Granbury ISD. I can't imagine, we couldn't have picked a better interim superintendent. Thank you. And then we will be planning a community farewell for you before you officially leave us. We're tentatively scheduling it for January 23rd.
I just want to know, is that going to be a roast?
We can make it one.
I have dished so much out since I have been here. Payback was going to be terrible.
It'll be fun. Anybody else? Okay. Well, with no further business, we will adjourn this meeting at 6:16 p.m.